It all started on a random Tuesday at the gym. I was walking on the treadmill, I watched a YouTube video, and I started crying. Why? Because I am addicted, or was addicted, to my phone. And social media played a very large part in that. Today I am talking about the uncomfortable truths of deleting social media and the things that I was not expecting whenever I decided to delete the apps. I knew something had to change after I started crying on the treadmill at the gym because I clicked on a video that was titled something along the lines of "Doom scrolling is turning us all into losers." I was crying because I wanted to quit. Sounds like an addiction. It kind of is. I wanted to quit for a long time, but my excuse has always been my entire art brand is on social media. I can't just quit because I don't want to doom scroll anymore, but I did decide to inevitably delete all of the apps, Instagram, TikTok, and even YouTube Shorts. Honestly, was not expecting everything that happened to me psychologically after I deleted the apps. So today I'm talking about the uncomfortable truth of deleting social media, the psychological effects, what happened to me, and why I'm still not going back. My name's Holly. I make mushroom art with the brand Susrooms. I'm on a little bit of an odd topic today, talking about me quitting social media. I definitely want to say that I am still posting on social media. I have a lot of social media platforms. I'm just doing everything on my computer so that I am not addicted to my phone. So it's not like I have erased my presence from social media at all. You can still follow me if you want to, but I'm just doing it all on my computer. And honestly, it has helped me tremendously to just schedule out my reels and stuff. So let me tell you what happened. For the next couple of weeks, I was reaching for my phone and going to the usual place where that app was, clicking it to no avail, nothing was there. I did this so many times a day. I felt like an addict. I was going to my phone every second that I felt a little bit bored. I was on a break at work. I was at a stoplight, for goodness sakes, and I was reaching for my phone for Instagram because it just is that addictive. My app of choice was definitely Instagram, but I also did venture off into TikTok and occasionally YouTube Shorts as well. I really didn't have an addiction to Facebook Reels, although I know a lot of people use those a lot. Every time I would reach for my phone and go for the app and it wasn't there, I would always feel like a big idiot. How could I do this? Why was I so addicted to my phone? What was going on? And slowly over time, it became a little bit less, and suddenly I started to feel some things I was not expecting. I started to feel a little bit more grounded. I felt a little bit more at peace with myself, and whenever I got these bored moments, it wasn't to no avail. I always did something. Take a nap, be creative. Mostly it's creative stuff I would be doing. Reading something, doing a chore like laundry, etc. It was never to no avail. The reason I decided I wanted to delete the apps was for a few reasons. I hated the feeling of ickiness I would get after scrolling for so long. I'd watched happy moments, I'd watched sad moments, I'd watched some really interesting stuff, some kind of things I didn't really want to see. I was being exposed to so much media that I just had no time to process any of it. I was comparing myself with all of these people that had their lives completely together. I was comparing myself whether I realized it or not. It was happening all the time. And the worst part about it is that after I stopped scrolling, I didn't remember anything that I had just seen for an hour, 2 hours, and my screen time was just going up, and to no avail was I stopping. It almost feels like I was in a dystopian world, not being able to remember what I had just been scrolling on for a few hours. The thing about me is that I have ADHD, and I really wasn't diagnosed or treated until I was in my mid-20s. It came with a lot of questions, but it also came with a lot of answers because I have always felt a little bit distracted mentally. For me, social media was a way for me to get those quick dopamine fixes and feel like I could go on about my day. That was my theory. The problem was I could not get off of it. Once I started to pick up my phone and scroll, I just couldn't stop. And this is actually intentional from Instagram. This is a psychological thing. Your brain really, really wants to finish a task. That's why it's kind of rewarding to finish your chore. The problem with endless scrolling is that your brain is looking for that conclusion and it just doesn't find it. Obviously, there's no end to the scroll. I remember whenever it first came out, I was thinking, I'm gonna be the first one that reaches the end of this scroll. It's never ending. I remember back whenever Instagram actually had an end. Those were the good old days, you know? I've always felt like I was somewhat of a lonely kid. Partially this is from my upbringing. I moved around a bunch as a kid. I didn't have a very stable community environment apart from just my immediate family. Until I was in middle school and high school, I started to kind of grow some roots. I really felt lonely in the sense of community and making friends. It was always kind of difficult for me. Moving around a lot as a kid, I found it really frustrating that I couldn't make friends very easily. And this followed me into my adult life. I actually struggled a lot with this after high school had ended and into college, and I really think that I've gotten much better at it now because of my current job, where I have to socialize all the time with random strangers, and it was a job requirement, basically. I feel like my social skills have really advanced and has taught me how to be a little bit more of a people person. And yeah, so I do think that my current job has helped me a lot with that, but it wasn't from my childhood that I learned how to make friends. And also, loneliness is not just a friends or community thing. Loneliness, and I truly believe this, is totally in your mind. I do definitely think that being around a community and having people that support you and hear you out and you can communicate with them helps a lot with loneliness. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm lonely because I'm alone. Plenty of times I love to be alone. Firstly, I love it. But there are definitely points where I'm surrounded by a group of people that I do be feeling lonely. And I've always wondered why this is, why I feel lonely in a crowd of people, why I feel lonely whenever I really shouldn't be. I'm with my friends, why am I lonely? The conclusion for me is not that there's something wrong with the people around me or my community, but it's really just whatever is going on with me at that moment. Because I'm a woman, I have a cycle, and so I have PMDD, which is premenstrual depressive disorder, I think is what it's called. I can usually find myself being a bit more depressed or a lot depressed at certain times of the month than not. And I know not everybody has that. I have it, and I've always wondered, oh, something's wrong with me. And to be fair, this really only started the depression feeling whenever I had my very first period when I was like 10 years old, which is crazy young to have a period. Like, what the heck? But that's just me personally. I think that loneliness also is a contributor of how you think about your situation, how you think about your worldview and your life. If you think that you are a lonely person, I'm pretty sure that's what qualifies you to be a lonely person. What has helped me in those moments, hormonal or being alone physically, I can decide to not be lonely and go and do something. This also really helps with depression, not staying in the same place, but doing something about it. I'm gonna go out and I'm just gonna be around people. I'm gonna call my friend. I'm going to do something about the loneliness thing. Does it always help? No, but it's a step. And I think that if you do nothing, nothing will happen. And so I'm a big advocate as I get older for, if I'm feeling a certain way, how can I orient myself to maybe feel a different way? Maybe a loneliness hot take, I'm not sure, but that is just my opinion on how I feel about loneliness and what I do preventatively whenever I start to feel that way. So back to the whole social media thing. Let's talk about my very first social media. So I am 27, which means I grew up in the 90s-ish. There was a lot of physical media. I had a lot of tactile sort of devices and stuff, it wasn't the world of social media quite like it is now. I got my very first Facebook account when I was 13 years old, and I think the following years I inherited my dad's old phone. My dad got, I think, the newest iPhone, and whenever it was not really working anymore, he handed it to me and my sister to use to contact them whenever there was something going on at school. And so we borrowed it, basically. We were like, I had it half the day, she had it the other half of the day. It would glitch out sometimes. I remember it would spaz out. It was not like I had my own phone. And I think I was maybe 15 at that time. I was that age whenever we had this hand-me-down phone, so it wasn't mine. And I honestly can't remember the first age. I think I was a freshman in high school probably whenever I actually got my own phone. And that was because I wasn't going to the same school as my sister. I was in high school, and so my parents wanted to contact me, so they gave me my own phone. I got my first Instagram, and Instagram didn't have reels or anything on it. It didn't even have stories in the beginning. It had just pictures, and you would only see the pictures that you saw that your friends had. So it was kind of a close-knit thing. Everybody had an Instagram. Everyone was posting pictures of their sneakers and their dog and the sky. And it was a new world, and I liked looking at pictures. It was cute. It was fun. You could build a whole aesthetic. I eventually got Snapchat, and that was just talking to my friends back and forth. It still kind of is that. At that point, I was not addicted to my phone. I liked Pinterest. I talked to my friends on Snap, and I posted cool Instagram pictures. But I think Snapchat was one of the first ones that had stories on it. Snapchat stories were super popular, and that was the first story feature to exist on social media. Eventually, that transitioned to Instagram. I actually was super mad whenever they integrated that feature because I was they stole it from them. And I didn't use Instagram stories for a couple years because I was they're stealing it, it's not as good. So then came along Vine, and I was super hyped about this. I thought it was super cool. All of my friends had Vine. We would make Vines, and the whole 6-second thing was super new. Everyone's attention spans at that point were great. We were all watching the entire YouTube video. It definitely set everyone up for lower and quicker attention spans. 6 seconds, you had to tell an entire story. You had to capture the audience. And whenever that kind of integrated and faded into Musical.ly, TikTok, and then eventually Instagram Reels, it all kind of went full circle with this idea that faster is better. And the quicker that you get the dopamine fix and to watch the video, the better it is. I remember I was addicted to TikTok for a while there. I was so addicted, I would spend hours on there thinking, well, this is making me happy. And honestly, that really didn't come into play I guess 3 or 4 years ago at this point, because I remember kind of deciding to be addicted to TikTok. I'm oh, it makes me happy. Girl, what? I really liked TikTok because it was these fun videos, and the algorithm picked up what you liked, and you could see all the things that you wanted and you liked to see. It was great. The issue, though, that I came across, and I think this is what really sent me over from kind of cutting out TikTok for that first couple of years, was I started to see a lot of stuff that I didn't like. I'm a very sensitive person, not just with sound and light and stuff, but also just in movies and TV and media. But my sensitivity really made it uncomfortable to see things online that I was really not wanting to see. I started to use the feature where you could say this video made me uncomfortable. I turned off some of the settings for the sensitivity stuff. I was still seeing it, and I think that that's why I eventually started to stop going on TikTok, and so I cut it out. The problem is I integrated Instagram Reels instead of TikTok, and I just told myself I would get on Instagram instead of TikTok, and then I just got addicted to that. And honestly, I've been addicted to Instagram Reels and doom scrolling since that period. So it was first TikTok, and then I stopped and I switched to Instagram thinking it was better. Enough about social media and my background. What did it actually do to me, and why am I still not on social media? So like I said, I would reach for my phone a bunch and the app was not there. I definitely found myself being more creative. I found myself doing something, and honestly, it's made me feel bored. And I know bored, that's a scary word in today's culture. I remember as a kid, I would get bored all the time. And my mom would always say, it's not my job to entertain you. Let's look up the definition, low-key. Let's look up the definition of boredom. The definition of being bored is here's what it says. Bored describes feeling weary, restless, or unhappy because you lack interest in your current activity or have absolutely nothing engaging to do. So yeah, I was bored as a kid a lot. Most kids are. But in that bored feeling, I always find something to do. And I think at the end of the day, being bored is actually something really good. Now hear me out, this is a hot take. It's good to be bored because it allows you to sit with yourself a little bit and start to process your day, your thoughts, your feelings, all of the above. Whenever I was going for my phone all day, every day, I wasn't processing anything. I feel like whenever I would go on drives, I would always find myself thinking a lot more, whether the music was on or not, and I would begin to process just a lot more. I feel like going on drives and just sort of verbally processing what's going on is really good for me and my brain because there's a lot of thoughts in my head with ADHD. Being bored is actually a great way to process a lot of the stuff that maybe is jumbled up there. I definitely think that being bored teaches you what things you're actually interested in. I have a lot of hobbies. I'm almost like a hobby collector. You can see just a little bit up, you would see the entire bookshelf of random projects I've been interested in and gotten really good at and then dropped. I definitely find a lot of enjoyment in starting and finishing projects. Finishing is a big bonus for me. I currently am working on a coffee shop journal. The stuff behind this desk is like super messy. I would have never even considered doing a puzzle, coloring a coloring book until now. I have all of this empty space now that I'm not scrolling on my phone. I'm reading again and I'm doing things I actually really like to do. So yeah, I don't know. I would encourage you to try it out if you want. I'm not saying that you should, I'm just saying that for me, it has helped me feel a lot more grounded with myself. I do definitely feel myself sort of enjoying life a lot more. I know, hot take. Here's my advice from my own experience. So I have moved every year of my entire life, pretty much. And the things that I have learned from that whole experience is that it takes about a year to make a friend. Being intentional about seeing that friend, being intentional about getting to know that friend, and showing up and being there for them. Why does it take a year? I don't know, but it always seems to take about a year. I have always been the new kid, like school, church, everything, every community. I've always been new. I'm very used to being new. So I've sort of constructed a sales pitch to people about who I am and what I do now that it's gone on for so long. I definitely find myself being drawn to people who are curious and interested in their own special things. I find that to be so interesting and cool. Like if you love turtles, I want to hear all about it. I want to hear about your favorite video game. I want to hear about whatever special interests you have because same. I'm interested in this right now and I have this project going on. I love people who have the weird ideas, who think outside the box. And so I find myself sort of fitting a niche of friends over and over and over again. And this is not calling out any of my current friends, okay? You guys are great. I'm just saying I don't really connect with people who are very appearance focused, and I would rather kind of be more inner interested and in figuring out my own quirks and stuff. Like I said, I love to be alone and I love to do my own things. But there is a side of life, and I think that this goes for everyone, that everyone should have a community that they feel a part of. Having community is so important, and I should know, I move a lot. It's more than just having a community, it's talking through things and seeing someone else's perspective. Having other people's ideas, perspectives, and ways of life that are completely different to yours is really good. It's really good to have friends who can kind of tell you when you're wrong and tell you where to go when you're confused. I don't think that anyone should not have any friends. I think that everyone has their own type of friend that they need, and maybe that person is completely different. Maybe that's why I love shows that have like friendship groups in them, like New Girl and Sex and the City and stuff. I really like friendship groups and seeing communities. But at the same time, I don't know if I would ever want to spend that much time with other people. I mean, my job is enough for me. So there is a balance, but I do think that community is a very, very important part, and that social media is not a real community. Okay, I'm gonna say this really lightly. I think that social media isn't true community. I think that you can find friends on social media, and you can even find your partner on social media with those dating apps. At the end of the day, if you're not actually setting down the phone and having a face-to-face conversation, maybe with the friend that you made on social media, it doesn't feel as real. Long distance friendships or relationships kind of stop in some capacity. You're not seeing how that person is reacting to you face to face, what their body language is. I don't know. I think that social media has sort of proposed this idea that we're all interconnected, and in a way we are. But whenever it comes to having friends and having connections with actual people, social media is a big facade. And so I could see someone on social media having their perfect bedroom, their perfect life, their perfect everything. They're not showing me the bad stuff. For the most part, everyone on social media wants to show who they are in the way that they want people to see them. I know I do. I don't show everything bad about my life. I think that having friendships in the real world and having communities of people show you the messy side. I think that friends and a community can really help. And I'm not saying that you can't get that community from social media, but I'm saying that only having your community on social media isn't as real. Just my hot take. At the end of the day, if I'm lonely, if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling a certain way, I personally do something about that. I take my physical body and go to a coffee shop. I call someone. I do something about it. Because I would rather try and change my circumstance to affect my feelings than not at all. And I've not always been great at this, but I know that as I get older, I get a little bit wiser, so... The main apps that I use nowadays are Pinterest and YouTube. Wow. But yeah, those are my two social medias that I use right now, YouTube and Pinterest. I think for Pinterest, I don't find myself scrolling and scrolling and scrolling on there unless I have like a specific idea and I'm looking for a certain thing. But I find myself way more inspired whenever I go to Pinterest. And for me personally, it's not about comparison, but it's really about inspiration. I'm inspired to now do this project that maybe I never have thought about doing. For me, Pinterest is a social media-esque, but it doesn't feel like a pit of scroll that I have to just like continuously look through. I think my average Pinterest screen time is like maybe 10 minutes, if that. I usually find something and then I set my phone down immediately. And then of course there's YouTube. I think the reason I love YouTube the most is because I am intentionally clicking on the media that I want to consume. Whenever I'm scrolling on Instagrams and TikTok, I'm just randomly getting anything in the whole world to see. Watching a YouTube video kind of brings back my control of what I consume. And I think at the end of the day, that's what I really love about quitting Instagram and TikTok. It's just gotten so addictive that even having the app there is just enough for me to just go right back. Anyways, this is my hot take for today. Hopefully you got a little bit of information from it. My conclusion today is hopefully I inspired you. Hopefully you feel encouraged to take a break from social media, or at least find something that you enjoy doing outside of that. I know for me, it has really ignited all of my old hobbies and stuff, and I've gone to craft stores now and I've just started new things. So I feel like I'm back in the real world just a little bit more, and I just wanted to share on here today. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you have made it to the end, go ahead and leave me a like. What are your thoughts about social media? Leave me a comment down below what your whole experience has been like on social media. Have you always had it, or have you just gotten out of it, or what's your story? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see y'all next week.